real
That's
quick.
fun one.
That's all right, they can miss out. What am I going up against?
Did you work for AWS?
Let's track one. Demystifying DynamoDB. Come on, FinOps.
It's FinOps versus Dynamo.
Come on, DynamoDB room better be empty.
You think this long?
Yeah, it's like, look, we need to move it over. No, we're fine. Hello, folks. Should I wait 2 more minutes?
Yes.
My name is Joseph Daly. I'm the Director of Community at the FinOps Foundation. I do not have necessarily a planned talk to go through. I have lots of slides or high-level overviews of resources about FinOps, resources available to you. I don't need to go over them. If you, like, I love the sound of my voice. I love that it's echoing back to me in this room. I will fill up the entire amount of time. However, it is a better experience for you if you interact with me. Optional. But if you have any questions about anything, if you're like, Joe, that's a really general statement you just made, let's dive in deep, let's go down a rabbit hole, I'll follow you a little bit, I'll go with you. I have experience in this space. If you walked in, you might have heard me chatting with some folks about old times. Got started in the cloud at Cardinal Health, we called it Cloud Optimization Services, or Cloud Cost Optimization team at the time. Went over to Nationwide, where started the Cloud Optimization Services, all the same words. And you can tell by the very nonchalant way I must have titled this talk, FinOps, Cloud Optimization, Cloud Financial Management, whatever you want to call it. I should have put a little bit more thought in that. They're all the same words, but it's all about making.
You just called it FinOps.
FinOps. Oh, thank you. Just whatever you want to call it. It's all just about making value-added decisions in the cloud, because otherwise it just turns insane. So I have experience as a practitioner, but I love talking about it so much. I joined the FinOps Foundation so I could just talk about it all the time. So the FinOps Foundation, we advance the people who manage the value of the cloud. We are a project under the Linux Foundation, and if you don't believe me, check out these socks. So I got the penguin on. Why else would I be wearing those socks if we were not part of the Linux Foundation? So the FinOps Foundation has 3 objectives, 3 missions. It all falls under to advance every individual who manages the value of cloud wherever they are. So I am here for you. I'm here for each of you, whether you work for AWS, consultancy, practitioner, wherever I'm here for you as a resource. We have 3 main missions: create connections. That's part of my role as Director of Community. I help engage the community and make it more fun to be around. Enriching the connections wherever you are. It can be quite lonely if you are managing the cloud spend in your company, because no one really wants to talk to you, because you are bringing accountability and finance numbers, and that's not so much fun. But when you connect with other people at other companies who are doing it, you're like, you see me? I feel so felt. Or no, don't feel felt. Then HR gets felt. I feel so seen, which is far more appropriate. It's like this all day, folks. Inspire growth. This is about training and advancement, how to educate. We have certification programs to help train you up. In building mastery, which is, we don't say standards. We don't say there are standards in cloud financial management or whatever you want, because as soon as I say, thou shalt tag, you will tell me why it doesn't work for you. So what we have are best practices that are commonly found to be successful at at many companies. And we have our practitioner community base. We're open source, so we depend on the stories of our community. Say, hey, this is my experience. This is what worked for us. This is the struggles we had. This is what didn't work so well. Because trust me, we all have times when things don't work well. Keith, I knew it started with a K. I was about to call you Kyle. I was like, it's not Kyle. Keith knows because he inherited dumpster fires from me. So you know, what we do is make sure that we have the resources available for you all to learn. So this is a very obvious slide, why cloud is important, what's so great about it. It decentralized all the resources, or so engineers can launch resources at will. You can use code instead of having to submit a ticket to engage procurement, and then go through the contract process and contract negotiations. Now you just type your code, hit launch, and it goes. It's variable spend rate. All right, and I'm saying these things as obvious, so bear with me because I have a point. So variable spend, it's not a fixed cost depreciation. How you use it matters. And then it's scalable. I mean, there's no limit. Well, there is a limit, but you're probably not going to hit it. So you can you have instant access to, as long as it's enabled in your organization, to global resources. We all know this. I just stated the obvious. It's been presented for years and years and years now. Here's the flip side of this. From the finance perspective, it's saying, wait, people are launching stuff all over the place and we don't know about it? And we don't know how it costs or how they're using it? Trip over my own stuff. And they can do it from anywhere in the world? Like, how in the world are we supposed to manage this? Because expenses count. And if you have uncontrolled expenses, there's only so much you can do in, usually the results, if they're uncontrolled, are not favorable to the employees of the company. Now, I bring this up because all of these things removed processes from the traditional way of IT operations, IT financial management, right? So procurement provided detailed information about the financial implications of contracts that were fed into finance, that fed into business leaders, that made decisions for the benefit of the company. You remove that chain, all of a sudden, all that data that fed into business decisions disappeared. Variable spend, which is awesome and very empowering, doesn't make it easy, it makes it harder. And scalable is cool, but just that's another accelerant. So it's important to take FinOps seriously. A lot of people are like, well, when should I do FinOps? It's like, well, when should you start governing your own money, right? It's what you do. Pretend it's your money. It's real money. So, Joe, you keep saying FinOps. What is FinOps? Is it financial operations? No, because there is a FinOps that is financial operations, but that's like accounts receivable and accounts payable stuff. When they show up to our meetings, they get really confused. That's not our FinOps. Cloud FinOps is just a portmanteau of finance and DevOps. It's trying to say these are the practices that bring financial accountability to DevOps style solution building. It's not, cost control is usually the entryway into the world of FinOps, cost management, savings and all that, but it's not the ultimate destination. The ultimate destination is maximizing the value of what you are doing in the cloud. And it's not done by themselves. I was just telling Cameron and his colleagues, the term shift left, I don't know how the term shift left came to be, who's left, your left, my left. But it's about taking financial accountability and putting it on the shoulders of the engineers who are launching it. That's great, I'm for it. However, we shouldn't expect our engineers to also be finance experts. There's whole departments that do that. They got degrees studying on it. You wouldn't shift right. And I was telling them, I went from finance to VMware operations, and it was a disaster, right? So let's not assume that shifting left is going to work out just easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? So you have to collaborate between all these teams. You need, so FinOps workers, I'm stealing from a slide that I have way ahead, they're Rosetta Stones of trying to bridge those gaps. Let's see, what's the next slide? And it's gaining in popularity. LinkedIn, this chart shows a number of times hashtag FinOps was posted. You can see in 2021, it just absolutely took off. The amount of jobs, it's becoming a career path. This is our number of jobs posted each month in our Slack channel, we have a Slack channel where everyone can come and talk and share knowledge and experiences and connect with each other, asking questions. Hey, has anyone used this service? How do you run it? We actually are about to open up a jobs board. We're busy trying to populate. I'm busy hiding from having to populate it with the jobs that exist. My colleagues are getting angry at me, but there's lots. People are hiring all over the place. I was just saying, local companies, Huntington, I just saw posted a job building their FinOps team out. Global, worldwide, this is happening. It's a career path now. Most people 3 or 4 years ago, they got into FinOps because someone had to pay that bill, right? And it's who got stuck with the bill? You're the FinOps person now. Good luck. Now there are people graduating from college and their first job is FinOps. At least you're all like, okay, but this blows my mind, right? And where is FinOps being reported? So this data here is taken from our state of FinOps survey data. We had over 1,000 respondents in our last round respond to this. We're like, where is your FinOps function located? So you have the first 2 rows, not surprisingly at all, this is landing in the IT section. And I've defended that it should be in the IT section, my own personal opinion there, because you want the people who are trying to figure out the financial impact of the services, the cloud services, you want them next to the cloud services. Because if, an anomaly alert happens, here we do. If an anomaly alert happens, it's not something like we'll get to it next quarter. When that alert happens, you get to it right away, right? You get billed by the nanosecond in some cases. Is that, you can't have it in a different department. My own personal opinion. CFO, but that being said, there's about 15% of the teams are landing in the finance office. And then there's just a lot of people like, we don't know, we're trying to figure it out. You may be working for a company that they're trying to figure out where this should sit, how it should exist. I find it really interesting, the difference between Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Officer. Do any of you work in a company that has both of those? You do? No, you don't. I worked at that company. I've only ever worked in a company that had one. They started out for the CIOs, and then there was an email out that said, call us CTOs now. I'm like, okay, you're CTO. But it is interesting where the difference is now, Margaret, like the difference is one is internal facing, the other one's external facing, or? So, technology makes up the biggest part. So that's the interesting part of it. And this is me bragging about it being a career path. It's growing, it's continuing to grow. So we have this broken up, this, again, our state of FinOps survey data. How large is your team? And we broke it down by the maturity level of each team, self-designated maturity level of each team. And their current team size, crawling teams, meaning they're just starting, right? The low maturity, low experience. They're starting off with 3 people, right? Cloud spend, you might start with 1 person, but that's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility for 1 person. You need a team to do it. And 12 months from now, they expected to double the size of that team. Once they're, getting used to the FinOps processes, implementing it, they're at a current team size of 5, they're expecting it to be 8 in the future. And as you continue to scale out your cloud environment and your FinOps practices, 12 months from now, 14 people, that's a department, right? Average size is, where's the average? Oh yeah, those are the average sizes. In 2021, it was average size of seven people, so it's growing, right? And the need is not going away. You can't automate this away. I can tell you why. You want to talk about automating FinOps? Yeah. I've only been responsible for 2 outages as a FinOps leader. Your FinOps team should be responsible for 0 outages, but I was responsible for 2. Because when you automate things, I love automated right sizing, right? There was a cloud provider, not AWS, it was a different cloud provider, starts with a G. They have a button that says, this resource, this compute is oversized. Right size it by clicking this and save 80%. And my boss at the time was a big, imposing person. He's like, click the button. I was like, I don't think it's a good idea to click that button. Let's ask questions. Let's figure out why is it sized that way? He's like, no, click the button. It's like, we need to do data gathering. Well, like, what is the business using? He's like, click the button. It's non-prod, click the button. I got someone else to click the button. But shortly after that, we had rolling blackouts in production. And what happened was that was a Splunk instance. We were hosting Splunk. Look, we were hosting Splunk, the cloud, we're learning. And he's like, it's too expensive, right size it. So we right sized it. Then the script that launched the compute saw that the environment did not match the scripted environment. And instead of relaunching non-prod, it launched all environments, deleted and relaunched all environments. So every application that had a webhook, whether it was in GCP or not, into Splunk, went down. Automation sucks. Automation is good, but the reason why I'm saying you should be wary of right-sizing FinOps is because you can't automate asking a question and figuring out what is the point of this resource? What is it trying to do? Because this happened before. I said, hey, you are at Nationwide. This is back in AWS. I said, you have all these resources, and they are incredibly inefficient. You should right-size those. And they said, no. And I said, why? And they said, because we are running analytics. We're doing, they were training, it's been a while, right? It's COVID, folks. I'm jet lagged. That's the excuse. That's the excuse I'll speak. I live in Worthington. But when you're speaking and you lose your train of thought, you say you're jet lagged. Insider secret. But basically, they were training an equation. What is it called? I don't know. You get it.
Model?
Yes, model training. Thank you. You win the prize. I don't have it. But when I get them, you'll win them. So they were doing model training, like, we need this model up and fast by the end of the weekend. The business needs it so they can sell to the consumer. Oh, well, yeah, I do want that running as fast as possible because I'm getting to the consumer, right? And if I run that really fast, that's gonna be better than running it really slow and ticking off the business who's not able to sell to the consumer, right? So it's that iron triangle of cheap, fast, or quality, right? And you have to ask the question, if you're automating, you're assuming, right? You're assuming that you want cheap. And it's not always the case. You want to be able to say, what does the business want? Because that's ultimately what we're here for. We're not here just to engineer stuff. We're not here just to finance stuff. We're here to deliver a solution to a customer. So we have to figure out what is the need for that business. And you can only figure that out by asking the question. I don't know how I got here from this slide. But we got there. That's from and again, that's my experience, my perspective. More state of FinOps data. What are your top challenges? What are your top related FinOps challenges? Number one with a bullet, getting engineers to take action. The FinOps practitioners are a little passive aggressive against engineers. Why won't those engineers take action? Only because they have a giant backlog of things to deliver. Am I right? I have been on that side of being angry at engineers who I'm like trying to say, hey, look at this, and then nothing happening. But that story I just told you of the engineer having way more context of what the business was wanting than I did, and me learning from that has really changed my perspective of that. So when I talk to FinOps teams, I'm like, I can't get the engineers to do anything. I'm like, how can you collaborate with the engineers better? How can you engage with the engineers to encourage them to investigate why these opportunities exist? What are other things? Accurate forecasting. What's the problem? It's up and to the right. It's accurate. So forecasting is very hard because you need that. You need information in order to do that. And if you don't have a philosophy of how you are going to attribute costs, it's really hard to forecast. Again, full allocation of costs, that's how you attribute those costs. Aligning finance to tech teams. All right, I come from finance folks. Let me be a little critical of finance people. They really like their Excel files. And like, it's hard to think outside the Excel file sometimes. But then again, none of us are perfect. You really got to find the person in finance who questions the number. Once they go past that Excel spreadsheet, like, hey, what's that difference? If a finance person says, hey, you spent this last month and this month, why? You know that person is asking questions, and they will be your collaborator, and will work with you, can work with you. Dealing with shared costs, like not every cost is taggable. It's kind of hard. It's a hard fact. How do you deal with that? You have to have an opinion on it. This is going to grow. That's my prediction. Container costs, because containers are magical. They save you money, but they take away a lot of that transparency that just a flat out EC2 or Lambda or something else will give. But they're magical, and if you can do them right, boy, is that great. But then again, the point of this is survey data, and the FinOps Foundation, we have working groups, and basically from those working groups, we get groups of practitioners, vendors, consultants. They go and they try to tackle these problems, and they create outputs, playbooks, slide decks. They're available on finops.org. You can go look at them. Yes.
Could you talk a little bit more about the challenges with container costs? Is it attribution?
Bingo. So what's awesome about, and I'm glad you asked this, very recently, I believe this week, Cloud Native Compute Foundation, sister organization, sibling organization, older sibling organization of the FinOps Foundation and the Linux Sync Foundation. They just approved open cost. I believe it's called open cost. And it's a way to dive in to standardize the billing of Kubernetes environments. Because what you do is you got your cluster, right? And then this is where I start talking over my head, because I never got pods, and I get them all mixed up in my head, right? This is why you need collaborators. Because when I talk about containers, I really have to hope nobody in the room has containers. But it's really hard to attribute where those costs are coming from. You got shared storage, shared compute in the cluster, and where are you going to put your tag or your label, right? FinOps Foundation does have some resources out there. We are supporting this open cost project, which just launched off, which is going to bring a lot more transparency to all the costs in the Kubernetes environment. But we also have a label schema tool, because labels for engineers, and tags for that matter, any sort of attribution, everyone has a different need for what information you are trying to get from those resources. So we have a group that is working on a label schema that says, hey, executives need these types of labels. Engineers need these types of labels. Finance people need these types of labels. And like, it will give recommendations of what labels you should include in your schema. It's pretty cool. I'm not sure if that's 100% available yet on our website, but it is in the wrapping up phase of that project.
What do you have inside accurate forecasting?
Let's see, can I take over this? I'm gonna click this button, see what happens. Oh, hold on, I gotta exit that. Oh no. Oh no, what have I done?
Click the button again.
Did you break down?
Everyone check your phones. So we do we have a forecasting module? I'm trying to remember off my head. We have a conference, if you want to go to a sold-out conference that you can't get into because there's no tickets left. But we are recording sessions. There is actually there is a forecasting module in my head. We have a forecasting module. It's very high level at the moment. We're in last year we did first iterations of all these projects, second iterations of all the projects. We have FinOps X, which I'm leaving for on Saturday in Austin, Texas, where we have chalk talks, and like for an hour and a half, people are gonna whiteboard forecast processes. Hopefully that turns into a working group that will continue to.
The reason I ask is like a lot of time, I see the challenges is like when you are in a cloud journey, new cloud journey, right? And then you don't know how much resources in cloud you may end up using. So people would say like,
Yeah.
turn it on and we'll do it later. So I want to see something like that.
Well, so how I have handled it, I love this cycle slide image right here because it summarizes what you need to do in order to be successful at all in forecasting opportunities. Start with inform, which is all about visibility and allocation of costs. So you have to have some sort of attribution strategy, whether it's tagging strategy or you're just giving or an account strategy. I love account strategies because you don't have to worry so much about tagging. Because tagging is really hard, you got to keep those tags up to date, and you can't tag everything. If you put a cost center tag on there, and then there's a reorg, well, crap, you got to go fix that. Right? It's really hard to do. Actually, we found the more mature you are, the fewer tags you use. That's a rabbit hole. But you have to have some sort of strategy that everyone understands of how you're going to allocate those costs. So that's your baseline sort of collecting of information of, okay, this is how we start forecasting, this is who is responsible for those costs. Then you can start working with them on what's the plan here? Are you going to continue using it, or here's what your budget is, we're forecasting that if you stay current steady state, like everyone does, they just think, oh, I'm in the pod now, savings, that they're going to stay under budget, but they quickly go over budget. So what you have to do is just then start talking to them, like, what are you trying to do? You know, there's a million ways to solve this problem. But you need that collaboration between the finance department and the business to make those decisions on how to best do it. Which goes into the optimization and talking, and then the operations. So it's just that whole cycle. And it all starts, I firmly believe it all starts with attribution strategy. Because from there you can start talking to people. You can talk to all these personas. This is a big giant slide that covers a lot of necessities. You know, you have your FinOps practitioner. We recommend a best practice is that there is a centralized team that helps enable your organization to make these decisions. Not every business has a centralized FinOps team. That's okay, but we find that the larger it is, it's harder to scale out these practices and if you can processes if there isn't someone responsible for doing it. Then your executives. It's really hard to get anything done if you don't have top-down support. Business and product owners, those are the people you need to talk to make sure what is that solution trying to deliver. Finance and procurement, because that is the lifeblood of the business, the numbers, the expenses. And engineering operations, those are the wonderful people that make it happen. So these are the principles of FinOps, the collaboration, everyone needs to take ownership of their cloud usage. That's being accountable for your cloud usage. Like I said, a centralized team drives FinOps, and those reports need to be delivered timely. When I worked in finance, there was a month-end close, a quarter-end close, and a year-end close. That's not enough. You need every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Those pure files get updated at least 12 hours at a time, every 12 hours. So I've seen people engineer it to estimate what the curve is going to show, and so they get immediate, that's as near real-time cost reporting as you can get. I don't recommend people do that, that's far more than you need, it's over-engineering a solution. 12 hours should be fine to make a decision. Decisions are driven by the business, not by one individual team. This is the technology and solution I love, and this is what I want to do. That's great, but does it solve the problem for the business and the customer ultimately? That's what keeps us going. And variable cost. I love variable cost because that gives me opportunities, it gives me leverage to pull. I turn off my lights because I want to lower my electric bill, stuff like that. All the dad analogies you got. Why are you leaving the lights on? It gives you options on how to operate your business. If you don't have those options of how to operate your business, if you have fixed costs, the only other variable cost is headcount, right? That's how I scare people into taking this stuff seriously. If you don't manage your cloud spend, which is variable, but you can't manage it, well, headcount is variable and manageable, and that's unfortunately what happens far too often. So these are the domains where there's lots of capabilities under each of those domains. Understanding your cloud usage and cost, that's attribution. How do you ingest the data from the cloud providers? And unfortunately, AWS, Google, and Microsoft did not work together when coming up with their billing and naming conventions. So you kind of have to translate all those together so that you can make one coherent decision. Performance tracking and benchmarking. This gets to your forecasting, right? You need a baseline to start and then to track. And then when you see a difference, you need to be inquisitive and ask why, so you can learn. Real-time decision-making. You're getting charged by the hour, by the minute, by the second. So use that information. Don't use last month's information for today's decision. Cloud rate optimization, that's the savings plans. I love savings plans because they made things easier, but I really love the 3-card Monte game reserved instances. It was just fun for me. It was like a puzzle. I remember once not being able to sleep at like 2 a.m. I was making reserved instance purchases, and then I had to call my sales guy the next morning, like, I did the bad thing. So cloud rate optimization, this should definitely be centralized. You don't want individual app teams. This is, again, my opinion, this should be centralized because you don't want to overcommit. And a centralized team can see all of the usage across your enterprise and say, this is the amount of commitment we need. Because if that team's committing, and that team's committing, and that team's committing, well, then all of a sudden, suddenly, you're in total, you're overcommitted. And then if any new services come out that you can take advantage of to optimize these solutions, well, what's the point? You're already overcommitted. They're not going to make any changes. So this is where that procurement function really helps. Like in the past, procurement would take care of these things. And so this is where you need to understand contracts and usage and commitments so that you don't screw that up and land up paying more when you're supposed to be saving it. Usage optimization, which is the better form of optimization. Reducing your usage is better than reducing your rate, in my opinion. But let's face it, that's right, that's the truth. And organizational alignment, this is a struggle even in the most mature teams. Jason Fuller works for Here.com, has been doing this as long as anyone I know. Here.com, very, very technological company, all about maps and GPS stuff. And the person who did FinOps for them has grown, it's like grown in responsibility, grown in responsibility, grown in responsibility. He's one of the most respected people in the industry. And still, internally, he gets pushback like, I'm not doing your tagging structure. Like, so it's always a problem, and that's why it's good to have a community to commiserate with, be like, I know, engineers are being jerks again. I think so. So this is everything your FinOps team needs to be. They need to be the cultural change flag bearer. They need to help enable and create for your company the best practices and track those benchmarks. Frustrations, oh my goodness. Lack of access to the needed data, distributed accountability, not being able to get people to engage, scaling out, being reliant on tools that don't meet your needs, accurate budgets, accurate forecasts, unit cost economics. That's where you start. Unit costs start coming in. They're much better for a single product. I was an enterprise FinOps team. I never really got to use unit costs myself because I had so many products I was supporting. It wasn't valuable to me to do that. But if I had my own team, I would definitely be looking at cost per transaction or cost per whatever my solution is doing. Because then I start really capturing all the data, not just my cloud costs. Untagged resources, oh boy, those are the worst. And then the benefits here, everything's golden. You got golden unicorns. Now, I don't know how much time. I love talking, and I think I got a little bit of time left. So what all is part of the FinOps Foundation? Well, I just talked a little bit about our framework, which is open source and open for contributions, right? The cloud technologies keep changing. The best practices keep changing. So we rely on our community to say, hey, this is my experience, and submit that so we help put it into our framework and evolve it. Slack community, very popular. We have thousands of people in Slack. We don't have as many because we separated it out. FinOps Foundation is completely free for practitioners. If you are a consultant or vendor, we ask that you become a partner in order to have full access to our Slack community, because this is where our practitioners are going and asking questions of each other. Hey, have you seen this service? Hey, how do you tag this? Hey, what, and so we want, and our practitioners have asked, and, we had it wide open for everyone, but there's always that one consultant. Sales pitches start happening, and unit economics becomes the answer for everything. And the practitioner spoke, and we separated that out. So it's a really safe practitioner spot. We have near monthly summits. We are taking a few months off, but those are all on YouTube, where we have lots of presentations. Training and certification program, we have FinOps Certified Practitioner, which is our entry level. Our basics of FinOps best practices. For those who have been doing it for a while, we have the FinOps Professional Certification, which is it's a real deal. It was giving me flashbacks when going through it. Working groups, like I was talking about, this is where we tackle the problems together. They're community-led. Regional meetups, these are things that I'm supposed to be in charge of, but I keep backburnering it. But there is an Ohio meetup that I occasionally host as time permits. But if you go to our website, it'll take you to our link of where all the global meetups are. Actually, Paris has one, London has one. Australia, we're getting set up next month. State of FinOps is our annual survey. Actually, we're putting data.finops.org next week. We are launching with our 2022 data. It's way behind schedule. Next week, we promise we're launching this whole conference thing, by the way. Vendor certification. Vendor tooling, they come through and we make sure that, yes, you actually can do this. Yes, you actually can do this. Yes, you actually can do this. They are vetted and looked at by our Technology Advisory Council, which is made up of practitioners and vendors, say, yes, this tooling does meet the standards of FinOps Foundation. But then really, the true value is just the connection and networking, and being able to meet and connect and see what else is going on. I said working groups. These are the open working groups right now. Let's see, I can't see. Public sector is huge, it's burgeoning. We have tons of US governmental community members that have come in this year. Just absolutely good. Every time Rob Martin, who works, he's our director of training, he lives in the DC area. Every time he goes and talks, you get 20 new government members a day. So there's how to implement in government. Canadian government starting to flood in here too. Adopting FinOps, pitfalls to avoid. So if you go to the website, Last year, we had the How to Launch FinOps in Your Organization working group, so that's a very popular project. The update this year is, here are the pitfalls to avoid. So if you go to finops.org, on the left side of the projects, you'll find all these. Let's launch. Unit economics is a live group going on, a lot more detail about how to figure out unit economics. Forecasting, like we were talking about, that's an ongoing group. FinOps for IT, financial management, TBM. Appio got mad at me because I was in there and I was like, TBM, what's TBM? And they started telling me, I was like, oh, back in my day, we used to call it cost accounting. That joke kills in finance subjects. All right, FinOps for sustainability. Sustainability is such a huge hot topic. It's a very popular one. It just so happens GreenOps and FinOps, same processes, really benefit each other, right? And I made the reference to iron triangle before. It really copper quadrangle, because sustainability is going to become a very important consideration for many companies. United States, a little lagging in the concern on this one, but Europe is actually our European community is leading that effort. Container cost allocation, that group is wrapping up and is going to be updating their working group outputs on our website. An open standard for cloud billing data. This is basically, like, how should we merge all of this billing data from all our different cloud vendors together in a way that makes sense. So that is very popular and very exciting group. So these are always being updated. I hope tax impacts never gets support, because that would be such a boring working group. If it does, I hope I don't get assigned to it. And I started in tax funds. And then these are our certifications. Like I said before, professional, you have to have experience for it, but you go through as a cohort. You have to do public service for the community. FinOps Certified Practitioner is an online course. You can take it yourself. We are bringing back classes. Our first in-person class will be next Tuesday in Austin, Texas. There will be, but there are online courses with live instruction. They're updating the materials to make that more flow better now that we're out post-COVID. So lots of materials, lots of resources there for you. We are at the end of our slideshow.
What was that session that you said is going to be hosted next week?
FinOps X?
Yeah, that's in Texas.
That's in Austin, Texas.
Right. So you said something about the forecasting.
Forecasting.
There's a session that's going to be recorded.
Oh, so day 2 of FinOps X, there's a chalk talk about this. Let me just see. Why don't you here? They may get mad at me for doing this. I hit a button. Screen share. You know what? I don't think it's gonna work. But here, I'll just look at my phone.
It's just on the second day. It's going to be recorded, so you can watch.
I'm FinOps.org.
I have it up here.
You have it up there. Is under projects, is there a forecasting? Projects. So the published projects, we have adopting FinOps, getting started, adopting FinOps pitfalls to avoid, encouraging engineers to take action, which is far better than can't get them to do it. Identifying shared costs, calculating container costs. Yeah, we do have accurate cloud forecasts on there. So I can't promise you that the recording of Tuesday's forecasting talk will be available soon, but we do have this. It's a good getting started guide, how to do that. It's a bit high level, but it's a good start. And it tells you tagging or labeling is very important. Communication, so you know what information to build in there, and then forecast frequency. Atlassian, Mike, there's a guy, we actually have a book out, O'Reilly book, is that the publisher? It was written by Mike Fuller and J.R. Storment. Mike Fuller does FinOps for Atlassian. They update their forecast every 2 weeks for the next 3 years. It's just constant because they have the data, and Atlassian has a much larger cloud footprint than companies I've worked for. But yeah, I'm on here. It gives you a decent overview. It needs to be matured, so join us, help us mature it. So, any other questions?
So you mentioned like as the cloud practice matures, you start getting less and less tagged, right? What's curious, like.
So just my tagging story. When I started at Cardinal Health, we had like 30 tags, at least 30 required tags per resource.
He had a shirt that says tag your resource.
Yeah, and like engineers think they're being funny. They'd be like, "I hate Joe Daly," is their tag. I'm like, that's not a cost center. But so it got to the point where we broke tag editor. Like tag editor would time out. So we said, all right, we need to reduce the amount of tags. When I went to Nationwide, I said, how about we leverage our CMDB or whatever application portfolio management? And that every application's in there, it has the cost center, it has the owner of the application. Let's just say all you need is that tag ID. So 1451 is solution XYZ. So all you need to do is tag 1451. Every time a company finally gets cloud opened up, like they're like, Wild West. And they're like, no, we need one tag. I won't say what they said to me, but it's like, you're the man with implementing your bureaucracy, trying to slow us down. It's like, no, you are a clown and you're burning all of our budget. But it's, you try to consolidate and make it sustainable. Because cost centers are usually at like 9 to 12 numbers. And if you're typing those in by hand, they're going to get fat fingered, their numbers are going to get transposed. And then it's just a pain in the butt to ever get fixed once it's tagged.
So I'm interested to hear how that experience was to leverage the CMDB, because as you know, CMDB is never accurate.
So exactly, and I would get pushback like, no, you don't want to use that. I'm like, why? This is so much more sustainable and so much easier to maintain. They're like, well, it's not maintained. It's like, well, they will be once they start receiving charges based off that information.
Oh, okay.
So some companies, chargeback, showback, which I don't know how in the world I just had a 45-minute conversation about FinOps and didn't bring up chargeback, showback. I'm a big believer in chargeback because I'm mean and I use a stick to implement policy. Some companies get very good basically the difference between chargeback and showback is an accounting journal entry, right? I use that accounting journal entry to take the cloud expense from off my budget and I put it onto your budget. So that's how I get compliance in FinOps. Some companies, depending on the company culture, showback is more than enough to do that, and I'm jealous, and someday I hope to be in this place where all I have to do is show a piece of paper and everyone's like, oh, okay, I'll comply. So it's good. How long is this session? Is it time? Are people starting to walk in and be like, this isn't a case study on Security Hub?
Yeah, that would be me.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
It's all fine.
Thanks, Joe.
I started to